Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Startup Sales. Really excited for today's guest. We have Jeroen with us. He's the co-founder and CEO of SalesFlare. He was a salesperson himself and getting really tired of the way that CRMs worked and being organized and everything like that. So he created SalesFlare, really popular CRM now. And so he's going to talk to us today all about the changes in today's world about remote selling and working from home and how to keep organized and how to work with the cons on that and make it work and become more efficient. So really exciting episode, a lot to learn, and let's get to it.
Startup Sales is a podcast about what it's really like to get a business off the ground. We talk with founders, CEOs, and sales VPs from the high-tech market. You'll learn how to build and scale a sales team. You'll also hear about the growth challenges and tough decisions from others who have had both successes and failures. And now, your host of the Startup Sales Podcast, Adam Springer.
Jeroen, thanks for joining us.
Hey, cool video.
Thanks. I'm happy to have you on here. Can you give a little bit of background? I mean, I kind of give a really probably undeserving intro, but can you dive a little bit deeper on that?
Yeah, so I'm Jeroen Corthout, co-founder and CEO of SalesFlare. SalesFlare is an intelligent sales CRM for B2B companies, small and medium-sized companies selling B2B. And what we mainly try to change is the issue with most CRMs, where they very quickly fail when you don't fill them out. We've built SalesFlare to be a CRM that largely fills out itself, that bases itself on all the data you already have, like in your emails, your calendar, your phone, social media, email tracking, web tracking, and all that. And it's built on top of that data. So it's not like many other CRMs, a manual system that sort of connects to that data as well. It's more of a system that sits on top of that data and helps you to curate the information in an easier way, so that it always stays up to date. And on top of that, it's also easy to use. That's something we focus on as well. A lot of
That's always nice for salespeople. Yeah. It has to be efficient and work within our daily routine.
Definitely.
Cool. So, and how did this come to be? What's the story behind SalesFlare?
I had been working with Salesforce for 4 years, deploying it at customers. We were in marketing consultancy, working for pharma mostly, and Salesforce was often the midpoint of the marketing campaign, salespeople, and all that. We also used it internally. It was my first real CRM, and I really tried to use it for practical reasons to follow up my sales, but never really managed. After a while, after trying really, like putting everything in Salesforce, I understood that that's not what Salesforce was built for. It was built for the CEO who really loved the system. He had like everyone putting their opportunities in, and he could make the reporting based on that. You could have people set on the newsletter and all that. There were accounts in there, but the actual sales did not happen in Salesforce. So I had Outlook and I had Wunderlist, and I organized myself with these systems to always properly follow up my leads at the right moments. And that kind of worked for me because I was an account manager with, let's say, 5 to 10 customers and leads in total. So I could keep myself organized that way. But then 4 or 5 years later, I was working on a software company where we had more than 100 leads at the same moment that we tried to follow up. And I knew Salesforce was certainly not going to solve that. It didn't do it for 5 to 10 leads, so definitely not for more than 100. And we sort of looked at different systems, never really found something that actually really helped. Plus, on top of that, when we started organizing ourselves in a Google Sheet, we found that what also makes it fail, next to not really helping with the follow-up, is the fact that you need to input a whole lot of data. And as long as you do that 100%, super disciplined, the system works for you. You have everything in there, and you sort of can rely on it to do your sales. But as soon as you start slacking, which always inevitably happens, it fails. And we felt that that was not normal. A system where we had to do a lot of manual data input, it's completely dependent on us, where actually the data that we were inputting was already in other systems. We figured that there was stuff in our emails, like who are we in contact with, what are the emails we exchange, their phone numbers and addresses in the email signatures, for instance. The stuff in people you're meeting in the calendar and the meetings themselves, extra information about that, calls in your phone, stuff in social media, company databases, tracking. And we saw a system that connects to all these places, pulls it together, brings it up for you, and helps you to organize your sales instead of you having to do it yourself, basically.
That's terrific. I always found that like Salesforce is terrific for leadership and like you said, for running reports. But besides that, I've always set it up for my clients as like a central database because it connects well with marketing, connects well with the technical stack and everything else. But then you always have your real CRM that the salespeople use.
Yeah. So. Yeah, actually, in very initial stages, we thought about a system that was more like a sales platform that would connect with Salesforce. And then salespeople can use Salesflare. It would connect with Salesforce, central database, sort of the vision we had, because we saw that there was a big a problem with bigger companies. Now, the bigger companies didn't really like the idea of having two systems. They were sold on having their salespeople work in Salesforce. And the synchronization between the two they saw as a risk. And then we also figured that actually practical usability is not something that big companies are very interested in. The focus is always much more on the organization. Practical usability is something for smaller companies. It's only smaller companies that look for something that will actually help them do more sales in a CRM. So we refocused, and we don't do a sales platform anymore. It's actually a CRM by itself.
Nice. All right. So before we actually started recording, we were talking about remote selling and what's happening now with everybody kind of working from home, and it's probably going to be a while. I don't like to talk about COVID and stuff on the show, but it's kind of like the future of where we're going anyways, where more and more people are going to be working from home. So what have you seen yourself as far as like trends from salespeople and being actually selling from home?
Yeah, I think remote selling has been something that was coming for a while. If you look at how inside sales, you would normally say, how that's evolving, it's growing and growing and growing as compared to field sales. It's just much more productive to do a lot of things from the office instead of driving around. People driving around can do max 4 or 5 meetings in a day, while inside salespeople can take double or triple that. I mean, depends on how well they can book their whole day. So you gain enormous amount in efficiency, less costs. There's always been this kind of break on that, though. Because there's still a large belief in going to customers in many companies. In some cases, it's definitely something that is probably still a good idea, especially with very high value deals. But in other cases, less. But still, people are slow at adapting. Now, COVID has given that a huge push. We all of a sudden we had to both salespeople and customers have adapted at the same time, which is nice. There's nobody that could say like, "Oh, I wish you came here." I mean, it's not possible. Everybody knows. So that makes that remote selling had to happen very quickly. and that a lot of people that weren't really used to it now have to do it, which of course comes with some problems.
So, what are some of the pros and cons from selling from home that you've seen?
Yeah, so one of the pros is definitely the productivity, like I said. In terms of cons, it's mostly related to the fact that it's not really a meeting where you're together with people in the same room, which brings a sort of energy. As we all know, also in communication, spoken language, like the words themselves, are only a very small part of the communication. Another part is tone of voice. Another big part is body language.
Yeah.
And I'm just here in a little frame. You can see only so much of my body, and it also doesn't reflect in the same way as it would if I would be in front of you. So we miss out on a whole lot there. You cannot bring over the same sort of experience as in real life. So you sort of need to start compensating for that, I would say, to make
Okay.
up for what you're losing.
So, I'm curious, as like from my point of view, I don't see that as really like a problem. I mean, I really agree with you that a lot of communication is. I mean, you can't dispute the facts, but I've been able to sell for the last 10 plus years as inside sales. And I haven't had any problem or seen any problems, closing 7, 8 figure deals, as well as 6 and 5 figure deals, with never even actually meeting the person and only using Zoom or regular phone. So, like this is kind of because this is kind of the trend that inside sales was going anyways. Is that's inside sales. So instead of being in the office, you're now at home. What do you think?
Yeah, for inside sales, indeed, instead of the office, you're now at home, which comes with a whole other slew of issues. But maybe to the first point, it's probably not a huge issue. I don't think so either. We have been doing remote sales also for since Salesforce existed, so for 6 years already. It works, but it's not the same. So I mean, there are certainly possibilities, and if you know how to do it well, you can do it. I do believe in that. I would never go back to doing field sales.
Why though?
But
Why would you not go back to doing field
I
sales?
even sold my car, so
Well,
I cannot even go there. I could take the train and then the bus and then whatever. But it's a huge waste of time. My day is already very filled, and if I would start to do field sales again, then my day was basically driving to a meeting, doing a meeting, driving to another meeting, doing a meeting, driving to a meeting, another meeting, and it's over. Now I can combine so much more in a day, and without all the stress of being in all the traffic jams in between and all that. And will I be there on time? And
Yeah. So you're saying like the productivity and the efficiency that working from home or the office outweighs the con of not actually being able to read their body language.
yeah, but then to the point you were making, you're going from inside salespeople working from the office and now from home. A bit of the issue is that you lose the team feeling. The customer has always been at a distance. The team was close, so you had good moments with the team at the water cooler, at lunch. There's this atmosphere, and you lose that a bit if you're working from home, especially for people who are not used to it, or used to be around people all day and get energy from that, get motivated to work. The sort of you go to work, you work, and you go home. Now you have to more bring up your own energy, which works much better for introverts, I guess, than for extroverts. And yeah, what we started doing more and more at Salesforce, for instance, is bringing back some of these things then virtually, which is never the same thing. But to have moments on which we can, we do a daily stand-up in the morning, for instance. We have a channel on Discord where we can get on and have a chat if we like, to make sure that it doesn't become very lonely. And that's even more true actually for non-customer facing jobs than it is for customer facing jobs. Because as a developer, especially, developers like to work alone, but they don't like to work alone all the time.
Yeah.
It's painful as well.
So what, you keep like a Discord channel open, and whenever somebody wants to go talk, they just go in, hey, somebody here, and you guys just kind of like hang out?
Yeah, I'm not in it now, obviously, because otherwise I would be talking with the team as well, so that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can put yourself on the channel if you're up for talking. You're doing something that doesn't need flow, and then you can chat with colleagues if you like.
I think that's awesome. It's a good way to really keep that communication channel open, especially cross, because if you're doing your stand up every day with your sales team, that's great. But also what's important is the sales team speaks with the devs and the marketing team speaks with sales, and that co-collaboration. Mm-hmm. So that's a good way to solve that. I like it.
Definitely. Yeah.
All right. What else are you doing to keep the team motivated and running efficiently at home?
What else are we doing? We've adapted some of the ways we do meetings, but it's not really groundbreaking. We already started the year focusing more on input than output, if that makes sense. Like translated to sales, we do it on all levels. But if you translate that to sales, it means looking more at what you're doing, like how many new leads you generate and all those kind of things on a more shorter term basis than the looking at the quota and where you're going to reach that. Because if every day working from home with sort of a lower energy around you, you need to focus on some sort of abstract goal, it's pretty hard. While if you can say, okay, you need to do 20 of that in a day or generate 2 leads in a day or whatever, it's much easier to say, okay, I've done that, check, and feel accomplished and keep up the motivation for the next day.
So switch, instead of like monthly goals or quarterly goals, switch it to shorter term, so it's something that they could achieve better and see more often.
Yeah, shorter term and more focused on input rather than output, if that makes sense. So more concrete, more stuff you can control by doing, rather than things that are a result of that in the end.
Okay, I understand. So if that's the case, then sales are still compensated on the output though? Or are they then compensated on the input?
Compensation is in output, yeah. It's just about the sort of you focus on shorter term stuff to then get to the longer term things. So it doesn't cancel the longer term goals, but just on a daily basis, it's better to focus on the shorter term things.
Okay. What are some examples of some of those like input goals?
So there's a lot of discussion around that. Many people don't like the idea of, for instance, the amount of calls you placed or something. Other people would recommend that. They would say, okay, the amount of calls you placed where you actually get a decision maker on the phone is a good metric. I'd rather go slightly away from really input level and go to a point where it says the amount of qualified leads you can generate in a week is probably a better metric. It links a bit more closely to the output, and it's let's say a bit more meaningful as well.
And I like that it's also, instead of daily, it's weekly, so it's still like short term enough to like make it like you could count and actually see the action being happening, but it's not like every day the counter resets, because that could also be demotivating sometimes as well.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. How is everybody keeping organized being at home?
We made a whole lot of changes around internal communication. That was very important to us. So we've been rethinking meetings mostly. Um, we are having our meeting notes in a Google Doc, meetings on Zoom, always a camera on. I always have like I take Zoom and make it a sort of column and put it to the right so I can see everyone in the meeting at all times. And then a Google Doc on the left, which we all look at together, which is sort of the anchor point for the meeting. And every different type of meeting is always the same way. So the discussions we have come in there together with the conclusions. Even if we decide not to do something, we write in there why we decide not to do it. That keeps us focused, and it's also good to at later points to revisit. Quick things happen in Slack, but preferably not deeper discussions. These can keep happening in the document. We have all kinds of meetings set up to make the communication flow. So we have these daily stand-up meetings. We have bi-weekly team meetings where we go through things that went badly and things that went well. We try to solve the negative things, and learn from the positive things. We have operational meetings to keep the planning going, also on a bi-weekly basis. Actually, the sprint meeting we do weekly now for the developers. And then we have some strategic meetings in between. And I just actually jumped off a one-on-one meeting before this, which we do on a monthly basis. So on all levels, we try to keep a rhythm in the communication to make sure we don't not communicate things. And maybe a good tip also is after each meeting, we try to have meetings limited very much to people that need to be involved. So it's not
That's good practice even when not working from home.
Yeah, but it was only when we started working from home that we saw a lot of the dysfunctions much clearer in the way we did things. So before we would have meetings where we involved a lot of people and all, but when you're on a call, for instance, you start noticing that you're 5 in a meeting and only 3 people are really collaborating and the others are zoning out. You sort of see it. If you're together in a room, it doesn't fully feel that way, but on a call, it's so obvious. So we said, okay, we should do these meetings with 3 people. But what we do then at the end is write down a short summary of what everybody should know, which we then place in Slack, always with a link to the full meeting document as well. So if people want to read the whole thing, they can, but at least they always get the short summary, so everybody knows what's discussed everywhere, at least on a high level.
I think that's awesome because it really, even if it's not somebody that's responsible for whatever the discussion is about, it gives full visibility and makes people feel like they're a part of the company and they understand what's going on, especially if you're working from home.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Okay. Have you found that you're doing more meetings now or less since working from home?
Internally, the same amount or slightly less. We've been trying to reduce the amount of people on meetings, so I'm doing a bit less, but not that much less. I'm doing many more online meetings nowadays. We've sort of been ramping up to proximity with customers. I'm doing quite some more podcasts like this one.
Yeah.
I've been doing a whole lot of presentations also at virtual conferences. All this kind of things became very busy. Like I've been doing days where I had 3 conferences in a day, while in the usual world it would be a conference of 3 days rather than 3 conferences in a day. I mean, so yeah.
I wonder if that means we're getting information overload.
I think it partly does, yes.
Yeah, too many podcasts to listen to. So don't stop listening to this one. Just cut all the rest of them out. But too many conferences to go to, and that it's also, they say, there's the phrase "death by meeting." Could be also the same here. You get information paralysis. You can't move because you just have too much information. You can't make that decision.
Yeah, I think conferences and yeah, I don't know how to do it with podcasts or live sessions, and you can add a lot by making them more interactive, because the pure information is going to I can watch a YouTube video instead of going to a talk. But if you can add a sort of interactive aspect where people can interact with you, that's when you can do really valuable sessions. Some of the better ones were where we had up to 30 people on a Zoom call, let's say, and would basically have the presentation as a sort of starting point, and then people would ask questions, and then we would do a bit more of presentation and then questions again, rather than this sort of monologues, which could be a YouTube video or a podcast.
Exactly. Like kind of make it like more of a workshop, an interactive workshop. Okay, guys, here's the theory behind it. Okay, let's put this to practice. Okay, here's the feedback on it. Okay, let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. One last question. What advice do you have for all the other founders out there that are struggling with getting their sales team to be more efficient while working from home?
Probably first, a lot of the things I said. What I see quite some teams doing is niching down to be more effective, especially in a time where maybe you're in a market where people are slightly less receptive right now. There's also markets where people are more receptive, so it's not all one general thing. But to focus much more on your exact niche, to really work on getting that very clear, so you can be more effective throughout these times. Another thing is try to be much more personable when you're on these kind of video calls. It's okay to, I usually wear shirts when in normal times. Now I wear t-shirts. My dog is snoring here in the background.
Mine too.
Sometimes kids join calls, or you show someone around, or that's all possible. I think there's certainly value in even despite calls being with a screen in between, to be more human while you're on it.
I think that's. I was just going to agree with you. I think that's super important. I've always, even before working from home, I've always been like the person that would say, "Hey, yeah, look, I'm taking this meeting, but I'm walking on the beach right now," or like making them feel like, hey, there's a human on the other line. We're not just here like business straight robots. So
yeah, and it's a bit easier to do that, but it's good to do that bit of extra effort there versus the normal. You go to someone's building, and then you sit at the reception, and then they come pick you up and they get your coffee, and there's this really funny routine going on, which seems a bit robotic. And then like, how did you find it? We can move all past that. And
I went one time with a meeting with one of my founders to go visit a client, and we walk in and we go do that whole routine where you sit in the lobby and wait. And as soon as we walk in, he's like looking around and he's like, "This is where dreams go to die." And it was so true, because it's very like corporate wise. It's very like, it's like there's no fun, there's no emotion in the place, and it's just dreams die there. It's just there's no innovation, there's no motivation.
Know the feeling. Yeah. Now I forgot what I was going to say next. But maybe as a last point, make sure to take some time outside of selling, outside of work. It's easy to my computer here, for instance, is quite close to the couch, to work all day. Try to take some time for other things, go running, spend some time with the family and all that. It will definitely help staying motivated.
Absolutely. I went to the beach this morning with my wife and went and had a coffee instead of working, and I was a few hours late to the day, but I think I got more done in the rest of the time because I felt fresh and clean. So
cool. Where do you live?
Israel, just outside of Tel Aviv.
Okay.
So
nice.
It's easy to go to the beach. It's nice and warm. It's close.
Yeah.
Cool. Jeroen, it was really great chatting with you. There's a lot here to learn, and I think a lot of people could make some improvements in the way that they're working as a team thanks to this. How can people reach out to you and learn more about yourself or learn more about SalesFlare?
SalesFlare is easy. It's just salesflare.com, like you're showing on the screen right now for the ones who are on the live session. So it's Flares with FLARE. You can always start a trial there. It's just a button at the top right. To connect with me, LinkedIn is the best place. There's only one person with my name, so it's not too hard to find me. But please do include a message. Otherwise, I cannot distinguish you from all the other people who are sending connection requests for whatever reason.
That's a good tip for everybody. Always send a message. It's so annoying to get these invitation requests that you have no idea who they are or what they want or anything.
Yeah.
So cool. Jeroen, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. This was fun.
Thanks for listening to Startup Sales with Adam Springer. Subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Contact Adam about speaking engagements or consulting services at adam@startupsales.io.